Thumbtack presents Tile Trouble. Every single time I use my sink, I make eye contact with the uneven grout on my kitchen backsplash. The crooked corners eye me, and I'm haunted by more tiling questions than I thought possible. What kind of pro can fix a backsplash? Can I replace one cracked tile, or should I replace them all? What if I just use Thumbtack? I can hire top-rated pros, read reviews, and compare prices with a tap, all on the app. Thumbtack knows homes. Download the app today.
And welcome to part 2 on Danny Welbeck. In episode 1, we discovered how Danny Welbeck grew up playing football in Longsight, Manchester. He was rejected by Manchester City at just 8 years old, then spotted by Manchester United about a week later. We followed him through the academy, his unforgettable Premier League debut goal and a brilliant loan spell at Sunderland. Now the story gets even bigger. When Danny Welbeck returned from Sunderland, he came back different, stronger, more experienced and ready. During the 2011-2012 Premier League season, he played 30 times and scored 9 goals as he established himself properly in Manchester United's attack alongside stars like Wayne Rooney. The little boy from Longsight wasn't trying to break into the team anymore, he was starting huge matches for it. And let me tell you about one of the biggest nights of his life. It was the 13th of February 2013 at the Santiago Bernabéu, Real Madrid against Manchester United. Cristiano Ronaldo was facing his former club and some of the greatest footballers on earth were on the pitch. 20 minutes in, Wayne Rooney swung over a corner and Welbeck escaped his marker, threw himself towards the ball and headed Manchester United in front. Danny Welbeck had just scored in the Bernabéu. Ronaldo eventually equalised and it finished 1-1. But what a moment it was for him. In the return match at Old Trafford, Sir Alex Ferguson gave Danny Welbeck another enormous responsibility. He said, stay close to Real Madrid's brilliant passer, Xavi Alonso, and disrupt him whenever Madrid have the ball. Welbeck ran and he chased and he pressed all night, helping United take control of the tie before Nani's controversial red card changed everything and Madrid eventually went through. Ferguson trusted Danny because he could do more than simply score goals. And although Danny Welbeck scored only one Premier League goal in 27 appearances that season, he finished it with something far more precious, a Premier League winners' medal. Manchester United became the champions of England for a record 20th time in what would be Sir Alex Ferguson's final season. Ferguson retired, David Moyes arrived and everything at Old Trafford simply felt different. Yet Welbeck responded with 9 Premier League goals in 25 appearances in the 2013-14 season, matching his best league total for United. Danny had grown up at Manchester United, but now his Manchester United story was approaching a crossroads. Now Danny Welbeck's journey was about to become a bit international. His parents were born in Ghana, meaning Danny could have represented Ghana, but he'd already played for England at a youth level. Then, in March 2011, came an almost unbelievable first senior international. England against Ghana at Wembley. Of all teams, Danny Welbeck came on for the closing minutes of a 1-1 draw and was actually booed by some Ghanaian supporters who wanted him playing for them instead. A little over a year later, just before Euro 2012, Danny scored his first England goal against a brilliant young Belgium side at Wembley, the national stadium. Ashley Young slipped him through and Welbeck calmly lifted the ball over the goalkeeper to give England a 1-0 victory. It was perfect timing. England were heading to the European Championships and Danny Welbeck was going there with them. Then came one of the greatest Danny Welbeck goals, one which England fans of that time won't forget. It was the 15th of June 2012 in Kiev, Ukraine. England and Sweden. England had led, then fallen 2-1 behind before Theo Walcott made it 2-2. With just 12 minutes remaining, Walcott raced down the right and sent the ball towards Welbeck. It arrived slightly behind him, so Danny improvised. He turned his body and produced an outrageous back-heeled finish, which flew into the net. It was England 3, Sweden 2. It was absolute instinct and magic all rolled into one. That goal helped England reach the quarter-finals and became one of the unforgettable images of Euro 2012. And this wasn't going to be Danny's only major tournament either. His England career would eventually bring 42 appearances and 16 goals. From Longsight to Old Trafford, and now Danny Welbeck was scoring unforgettable goals for England. Then, in the summer of 2014, everything changed again. Louis van Gaal arrived at Manchester United, and Danny suddenly found himself competing with Wayne Rooney and Robin van Persie, with other strikers arriving on loan too. Louis van Gaal later explained his decision brutally. Welbeck had been in United's first team for 3 seasons, but he didn't have the goal scoring of Rooney or Van Persie. At 23 years old, after growing up at the club, Danny Welbeck would be leaving Manchester United. And his transfer story was absolutely bonkers, to tell you the truth. It was deadline day, the 1st of September 2014. Arsenal needed another striker after Olivier Giroud suffered a serious leg injury. But Arsene Wenger wasn't even in England. He was in Rome, taking part in a match of peace organised by Pope Francis, managing a team which contained no other than Diego Maradona. No, I'm not making it up, all of this stuff is true. While all of this was happening, Arsenal were working on a deal to sign Danny Welbeck. Arsene Wenger later joked that travelling had actually helped because he had been awake since 6 in the morning and available all day. Arsenal eventually completed a permanent deal worth £16 million. So, picture Danny Welbeck, the Manchester boy who had supported Manchester United, joined their academy as a child, scored at Old Trafford and won the Premier League with them, suddenly putting on an Arsenal shirt. But he wanted something he hadn't always been given at United, the chance to play through the middle. Then, barely a month after signing, came a night at the Emirates that suggested Danny might have found exactly what he was after. Arsenal against Galatasaray in the Champions League. Welbeck scored once, then twice, then 3 times. His first senior hat-trick, helping Arsenal win 4-1. It was only a few weeks earlier Manchester United had decided it would be time to let him go. Now Danny Welbeck was standing beneath the Champions League lights with the match ball in his hands. A new shirt, a new city, a new chapter. But Danny Welbeck's Arsenal story was about to contain some enormous highs and some desperately difficult lows as well. And now we reach the hardest part of Danny Welbeck's story, April 2015. His first season at Arsenal was brought to a halt by a knee injury. What initially seemed manageable eventually required surgery, and Danny disappeared from football for almost 10 months. Training sessions became rehabilitation sessions, match days became days spent watching. For somebody who simply loved playing football, it must have felt like eternity. Then came one incredible comeback. February 2016, Arsenal were chasing the Premier League title against surprise leaders Leicester City. Danny Welbeck hadn't played competitively for nearly 10 months, but deep into injury time, he rose to meet Ozil's free kick and headed in the winner. His first game back, his first goal back, with practically the last touch of the match. The Emirates exploded. You can imagine it, can't you? And then football kicked him again. Less than 3 months later, against Manchester City, Danny Welbeck suffered serious cartilage damage in his other knee. Another operation was required, another recovery expected to last around 9 months. Then, in November 2018, came perhaps the most frightening setback of them all. Playing against Sporting Lisbon in the Europa League, Danny badly injured his right ankle and required 2 operations. Welbeck later summed up this horrible period himself. 10 months out, then 8 months out, then 9 months out with his ankle problems. It was horrendous. Arsenal released him when his contract expired in 2019, and Watford signed him on a free transfer. Yet even there, a hamstring injury kept him out for another 4 months. Can you believe what you're hearing? Somehow though, the old magic still appeared. Against Norwich in July 2020, the ball dropped behind him inside the penalty area, and Welbeck launched himself backwards, producing a spectacular overhead kick into the top corner to win the match 2-1. After everything his body had been through, Danny Welbeck could still do it. Watford were eventually relegated, and Danny Welbeck left by mutual consent. At 29 years old, he was a free agent again. No club, years of serious injuries behind him. He even continued working with Watford's fitness coaches while he waited for his next opportunity. Plenty of people might have wondered whether Danny Welbeck's story was almost over. It wasn't, not even close. And then, in October 2020, came the opportunity that would completely change the direction of Danny Welbeck's career. Brighton and Hove Albion signed the 29-year-old on an initial one-year deal. After Arsenal, Watford, operations and months upon months of rehabilitation, Danny was heading for the South Coast to work under Graham Potter. It might have looked like one final chance. Instead, Brighton would become one of the most important clubs of his entire playing career. Slowly, Welbeck began building himself yet again. He scored 6 Premier League goals in his first season and became much more than simply another striker. Potter described him as a leader and a role model for Brighton's younger players. That mattered because this was a club packed with exciting young talent. Danny had gone from being the academy kid, learning from Ryan Giggs and the likes of Thierry Henry, to being an experienced player youngsters were now learning from. And there were some wonderful moments. In December 2021, Brighton were losing 1-0 to Chelsea, when, in stoppage time, Marc Cucurella swung in a cross and Welbeck rose between the defenders and headed it in. Brighton had scored at Stamford Bridge for the first time in their history and snatched a 1-1 draw. Danny Welbeck was the man behind it. Then, Brighton themselves started making history. In 2022-23 season, they finished 6th in the Premier League, their highest ever top-flight finish, qualifying for European football for the very first time. And when that European adventure reached the mighty Roma in March 2024, who scored Brighton's winner in the second leg at the Amex? Of course, it was him. Danny Welbeck curled a beauty into the corner as Brighton beat Roma 1-0. Even though the Italian side progressed on aggregate. The footballer, who not long before had been 29 years old, injured without a club, was now scoring goals on European nights. And somehow, Danny Welbeck was still getting better. As Danny Welbeck moved through his 30s, the story became even more remarkable. During the 2025-26 season, at the age of 35, he produced the most prolific Premier League campaign of his career. 13 league goals. That matched Glenn Murray's Brighton record for the most Premier League goals by an Albion player in a single season. The teenager, who once wondered whether his aching knees would let him train, was still scoring goals at the very highest level more than 2 decades later. And Danny wasn't simply standing around waiting for chances either. And at 35 years old, after 6 seasons on the South Coast, you might imagine that Danny would finally begin winding down and get the slippers on. Oh no, not Danny Welbeck. He would be moving to one of the biggest clubs in the Premier League. At 35 years old, Danny Welbeck joined Chelsea. It was on the 1st of August 2026 that Chelsea signed him from Brighton on a contract running until 2028, with a fee reported at around £5 million. And there is an incredible full circle twist. Chelsea's now manager, Xabi Alonso, remember him back in 2013 when Manchester United faced Real Madrid in the Champions League? Sir Alex Ferguson used Welbeck to stay close to Alonso and disrupt one of the finest passes in world football. Well, 13 years later, the man Danny Welbeck had once been asked to chase around and make his life a misery is now his manager as he goes into yet another Premier League season. From Longsight to Manchester United, to England, Arsenal, Brighton and to Chelsea. At 35 years old, Danny Welbeck wasn't reaching the end of his football story. Oh no, he is starting another one. So remember, if you know someone who loves football just as much as you do, then please tell them about the Football for Kids podcast. And whether you're playing football soon, watching it on the telly or pitchside, I hope that you enjoy the game. See you next time.